Depending on what video game fanbase you ask, when you start to talk about adaptations, you're either met with a they're alright, to oh god, what are they adapting now? And that's no real surprise, because when it comes to adaptations of video games, the results could be anything between pretty damn good to something that barely resembles the source material. For every Cyberpunk Edgerunners you have a Halo show, for every Arcane you have Monster Hunter, and for every Super Mario Bros you have, well, Super Mario Bros. But why is the range of quality so large? Why is it that some IPs get the extra love and attention, while others are used mainly as a selling point? No one sets off to make a bad product, so why is it so hard to translate video games into film? I am no film buff. Hell, I'm barely a video game buff. I know next to nothing about how to film anything or how to compose a movie, but this is still something that I want to dive deeper into. So sit back, grab some popcorn, maybe a drink, because we're going off to the movies. So for this deep dive, I'm mainly going to be looking at 2 good adaptations and 2 bad ones, looking into what made the good ones tick and why the bad ones failed. For the good adaptations we have Arcane, the League of Legends series that's on Netflix, and the Sonic the Hedgehog films. I'm a Sonic fan by heart, I have to talk about them. And for the bad ones, we have the Like a Dragon show and the Monster Hunter movie. So, first off, let's look at Yakuza, or as it's now known as Like a Dragon, is a long-running franchise made by Sega and was pioneered by the maker of Super Monkey Ball. Not too sure what made him go from apes and balls to a crime thriller, but I am glad it went that way because these games are amazing. One minute you're fighting for your life as political unrest between different crime families reach a fever pitch, the next you're racing coin carts and a chicken is your manager. It really covers the whole gambit between whimsically silly and heartbreakingly sad. It's honestly impressive. You feel for these characters as they grow and develop throughout the games, as they're thrown from issue to issue, the stakes raising as time goes on, only for them to then spend some time playing the arcade game Outrun. Hey, I'm not one to judge, I love Outrun. So, when Amazon announced that they were doing their own show based off the games, I was interested in how they would do it. Will it focus on the political side of things, or will it also shine a light on the more whimsical side of the series? Will they adapt the games or do a side story? Who will the show follow between the game's many different characters? Instead, we get a show that's Yakuza in name only. The characters do not act like their counterparts in the game at all, plot dots back and forth between timelines in a confusing way, and don't get me wrong, many shows do this for a narrative purpose, but the way it's handled here honestly confuses me. And while yes, the show does reference places in the games, it doesn't actually do anything with those references. It just goes, oh, let's go to X or Y. It all boils down to the fact that I don't know who this show is made for. If it was made for the fans, the changes in the story and the fact the characters don't act like their game counterparts would put any of them off. The lack of the game's iconic, goofier side also doesn't help this. For newcomers, it's a messy story, it's told really badly. Without any connection to the source material, they wouldn't really want to stick around to watch it. That's not to say that an adaptation can't go off and do its own thing. The Fallout show, for example, goes off and does its own thing and a lot of people enjoyed it. Because despite the changes that it made to the lore, there were still things there that tied it to the games, be it the characterization or the overall setting. Yakuza could have worked as a serious crime drama if they at least tried to link it to the game some more, and make some of the characters closer to their in-game counterparts. But why didn't they? The creative team flat out told the actors to ignore the games, as they wanted to do their own take on the characters, and during interviews, the main actor said that the show would be departing from the game. Which again begs the question, if you're adapting something, but departing from the thing you're adapting, why adapt it in the first place? Fans are fickle creatures. If you're going to do your own thing and you don't do it well, they will hold it against you. It's easy to do this when you're adapting a game that's plot is kind of not really there, the Super Mario Bros. Movie comes to mind. It doesn't adapt any of the games, it's very much its own thing, but despite that, because it respected the source material, fans loved it. If they showed the cast doing some of the things that they're known for doing in the game, maybe playing arcade machines or singing karaoke, I'm sure a lot more of the fan base would actually give the show a shot. In fact, a karaoke scene was originally planned and it was shot, but for some bizarre reason they cut it in post-production. Why would you cut that? From one TV show to the next. Arcane is an adaptation of League of Legends. Although I'm pretty sure I don't need to introduce this show. It was everywhere on my Twitter and Blue Sky feed when Season 2 was out, so I'm pretty sure anybody watching this at least knows what Arcane is. But on the off chance you don't, let me explain. What do you get when you take the lore-filled world of League of Legends and give it to the French? You get one of the best animated shows I have ever seen, which to be fair is expected. French animation often gets slept on, but it is good stuff. The visuals alone are fantastic, mixing both 3D and 2D animation to create something that is pleasing for the eyes. Some shots look like they were painted onto canvas, they're that good. The music choices are also great. Some scenes in Season 2 in particular are forever stuck in my head because of the song choices. The fight scenes, again, are amazing. With some of the fights having such kinetic energy, I often find myself re-watching them. The fight at the climax of the first act in Season 2 is probably one of my personal favourites. It took the lore of League of Legends, but it didn't follow it one-to-one. It did take some liberties in some areas, but it followed it enough that fans of the game won't feel left out, with nods to other characters throughout the show. The new characters that were introduced as well felt like they fit into the world really well. Nothing felt out of place, and the character drama that was at the front and centre was done well enough that it didn't feel like it wasn't needed. If you didn't know anything about League of Legends, like myself, I don't know anything about the lore, you'll still find yourself watching a really enjoyable show. So even though they changed some things, why was this adaptation seen as a good one? Well, the fact that it's not ashamed to acknowledge the source material helps. It knows it's an adaptation of a game, and it runs with it. One of the central areas in the series is in a place called The Lanes, which is a direct reference to the game because you're spending your entire time battling in the lanes. There are references to the Baron that gives you a buff in the game. It's not ashamed of any of it. It's also very digestible for newcomers. It's an easy to follow plot with clear motivations for each character. So you have both newbies and fans hooked. It boils down to two things. It knows that it's a game and is not ashamed to admit it, and it's easy to follow for newcomers. That's really it. Most good adaptations that I know follow those two rules. I do generally think that if Yakuza leaned into its gaming roots a bit more, it would have been looked at more fondly by the fanbase. Along with that, if the plot itself was easier to follow for newcomers, I'm sure they would have stuck around as well. Arcane is not without faults, don't get me wrong. When you compare Season 2 to Season 1, Season 2 definitely is the weaker of the two. It feels like it could have used some more runtime to really flesh out some of the finer story bits. Along with this, some of the plot points from the first season seem kind of just tucked away, without them being given any sort of closure. The main one to me is, it makes you want to reinstall League of Legends, and let's face it, no one should suffer that fresh hell. So, that's the TV shows out the way. How do movies tackle this? Well, first off we have... Just a heads up for this segment, I'm going to be using Monster Hunter gamer footage for this. Whenever I use film footage, the copyright system on YouTube picks it up, so yeah. Not ideal, but hey, we make do. Monster Hunter is a game series that could work really well as a film. Make it something like a coming-of-age story. A young kid trying to bring honor to their family by slaying a monster that's causing issues in their village, or something like that. That would keep it in line with the games while making it easy to follow for newcomers. The film did none of that. Instead, it went in the complete opposite direction. When you see Monster Hunter, is your first thought, oh boy, I would love a film where the army gets dragged into the game's universe? If so, then honestly, I'm scared of you, and secondly, you have the plot for the film. It does nothing that makes the game enjoyable. The characters feel flat and the monsters are not treated as if they're part of an ecosystem. Instead, they're just your run-of-the-mill monster you expect to see in a horror film. In the game universe, the monsters are not mindless kill-everything machines. They have a presence in the ecosystem of the area that they're in. The only reason we are out killing them is because they're either causing a ruckus, or overpopulating, or in one case, being very, very annoying. So to see them reduced to just they're evil is disappointing. The main example of this is Diablos. They are a menace in the film. They follow the main character around pretty endlessly. The issue is, in the game, Diabloses are herbivores. They have no reason to hunt people down unless they are encroaching on their territory. They do not eat people, they eat cactuses. Why are they hunting the cast? I don't get it. The characters also feel fairly one note, but then again, the games aren't really known for the characters. To give the film credit though, the monsters do look really good in this film. Diablos, Rathalos, they both look great. Honestly, I have to give the film props for that. Another bit that I did enjoy was the small segment with the Nursiculas. It was generally unsettling in parts. However, other than that, I can't really recall anything else that stood out to me. I also probably butchered the pronunciation of that monster. So, adapting an IP, incorporating things from our world into it or vice versa, sounds like it shouldn't really work. Well, I would have to disagree because there is a film that did that but did it better. One that ended up beating Disney of all companies in the box office. So, of course, I'm going to talk about... So yeah, just a forewarning, I'm going to be incredibly biased with this. I'm a long-time fan of the Blue Blur, playing his games from the Mega Drive to now. However, when I heard that they were making a live-action film based off the Blue Spike Ball, I was terrified. This was not helped by the god-awful trailer that they first showed off, which thankfully got reversed after enough fans complained about it. But somehow, against all odds, the one game series that has had a consistently good set of films, according to viewer review scores, and let's face it, they're the ones that matter, is Sonic. And yes, I'm counting these as good adaptations. Despite what some of the fan base say, the fan base can't seem to make up its mind about what's a good piece of Sonic media and what isn't. One day Sonic Mania is one of the best 2D Sonic games of all time. The next day people are saying it's overhyped. They can't seem to make up their mind on these things. So, despite what people say online, it stays in the good category. Don't like it? That's fair. We all have our own opinions, my friend. They did their own thing with the lore, with the plot and with the characters, basically giving themselves a fresh slate to do what they want with. And it works really well. It was a gamble, but they pulled it off. Much as, I hear you say. You moaned that Yakuza did the same thing, and you're right. But the main difference between these two is, Sonic knows it's from a game and is not ashamed to admit it. There are things the character does in the films that he does in the game. You can tell that this is an adaptation of a game series. There are references, but it's not in your face. They're mainly in the background, so eagle-eyed fans can point at the screen and go, look at the thing. And, this is most important, we have Tyson Hess and his team working on the character designs for all 3 films. And this is someone who has worked on the games themselves. They have locations showing up from the game, such as Green Hill Zone, and a nod to Labyrinth Zone in the second film. And after 2 films of fans begging for them to use any music from the games, they finally added some game music in the 3rd film. Are the films perfect? No. The first film, while still an enjoyable buddy cop film, is certainly the weakest of the 3, but it did set the groundwork for the other 2. After all, without the first one, there would be no 2 or 3. Also, and most importantly, these films are made for kids. Let's not forget that. As much as I and many others in my age range may like this franchise purely for nostalgia reasons, we really shouldn't be forgetting that we're not the target audience here. So maybe keep that in mind before asking why isn't Gerald Robotnik killed by a firing squad in the film. So that's my look at a few game adaptations, and like I said before, I'm no film nerd. I'm not that knowledgeable about things such as licensing and screenwriters and what goes behind making a production such as this. I would also like to point out this video is purely just my own opinion. In your eyes, I could be completely wrong about a large amount of things, and that's great. If you do think that way, please post a comment below, let me know what you think. Let's have a conversation going. After all, I do strongly believe that, like I said at the beginning of the video, no one sets off to make a bad product. Everything that I've talked about today had a team that wanted to make the best thing they could. No actor goes in to give the bare minimum. No scenario writer writes a half-assed script. Or at least, I like to think so. There are countless examples of films that did the IP proud. Detective Pikachu was, in my eyes, a really fun time. The Super Mario movie was a love letter to the games, with nods to both the mainline and side games throughout the entire thing. And even before the Sonic films were a thing, we had the, quite frankly, amazing Sonic the Movie OVA, which is still, in my opinion, the best version of the Blue Blur. If more adaptations take the history behind the IP that they are adapting and run with it, I do think that overall that would make a better product. Not just for long-running fans, but for newcomers as well. So now that I've had a look at a few adaptations, what games would you like to see blown up on the big screen? Or be turned into a show? Personally, for me, I would love to see how they'll manage a Legacy of Kain series. That would be perfect for live action. Hell, the script's already borderline Shakespearean anyway. And who knows, maybe if they get enough people watching it, they'll finally make a brand new entry in the series. Please? Hey, thanks for sticking around for the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit different talking about films or TV media rather than games for a change, but I hope I did a good job. This video took a bit longer than expected to make. I've been a bit sidetracked messing around with Godot. As for how that's going, it's certainly going somewhere. If you want to listen to more of my ramblings, please consider subscribing. It does help out a lot. And you can catch me on Blue Sky. I used to be on Twitter, but due to what's going on, yeah, I'm not going to be using Twitter that much anymore. We'll be back to talking about games in the next video, so I hope I'll see you lot then. Ciao.